Time and time again, after talking with septic tank workers and bridge builders and skull cleaners and just this endless variety of odd jobs, I found people who didn't follow their passion into that career, but rather followed opportunity.
In this episode, we sit down with Emmy Award-winning TV host and producer Mike Rowe, who is best known for hosting the series Dirty Jobs.
Among other things, right now we have 7.2 million men, able-bodied men, in the prime of their working life, who are not only not working, but affirmatively not looking. What they're looking at are screens.
In the post-COVID era, why are so many jobs now impossible to fill? What has gone wrong with our society? And how do we turn things around? This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick. Mike Rowe, such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Nice to be here.
Mike, you said something that a lot of people, I think, would find very controversial. I want to start with this. You said that you actually shouldn't follow your passion.
Right. Yes. People hated that. I didn't say they shouldn't be passionate. I just said that passion's so important that you should take it wherever you go, not just follow it around like a dream. This was one of the big lessons from Dirty Jobs. There were many lessons from that show. But the first one, and the big one, was the day I realized that so many of the people we profiled on that show were passionate. They were very happy. People were having a weirdly good time, and that confused people. Right, because we probably featured, there were 350 dirty jobs and 350 dirty jobbers at least. And probably 40 or 50 of them were multimillionaires. Nobody knew it because we never made a big deal about it. And because they were covered in filth or something disgusting. So people didn't equate success with that, but nor did they equate joy or fun or lightheartedness or passion. Mm-hmm. And so time and time again, after talking with septic tank workers and bridge builders and skull cleaners and just this endless variety of odd jobs, I found people who didn't follow their passion into that career, but rather followed opportunity. And once they got the opportunity, then they figured out how to be really good at it. And then after they figured out how to be good at it, then at some point they figured out how to love it and how to be passionate about it. And so it's a small thing unless you really step back and look at it, because we've told a whole generation of kids that if you want to be happy in your work, if you want job satisfaction, the first thing you have to do is identify in your mind the thing that's going to satisfy you. And then you embark on this plan of satisfaction pursuits. And so you borrow lots of money and you take lots of tests and you do whatever you have to do in pursuit of this thing you believe is going to make you happy, as opposed to just looking around and seeing where everybody's going and then going in the opposite direction, following opportunity instead of passion. Mm-hmm. So I started to say, look, we all want to be passionate, but rather than follow it, let's just take it with us and figure out how to be passionate regardless of what we're doing. That was a message I gave in a commencement speech at PragerU. That advice is this. And YouTube restricted it. They wouldn't let anybody over 18 watch it.
So, and that is so interesting, isn't it? That is such a bad message.
I think it's a threat. I hadn't thought of it before, but why else? There was no profanity in my message. There was no obscenity. I kept my clothes on for most of it, right? There was nothing that would make you go, oh, that's inappropriate, except for the fact that the point of leading into the speech with that thought was to pivot and then say, look, there are a lot of great jobs out there that are open that don't require a 4-year degree. And if somebody told you that your passion is going to require you to borrow $250,000 that you're going to have a hard time paying back in order to pursue a thing that may or may not make you happy, then you should possibly think a little differently about what your educational path should be. And that, I believe, was seen as a threat.
No, you're just making me think about something that I've heard anecdotally, but many times now. So I was just interviewing, we're here in California, of course, I was just interviewing someone that's shipping out, serial entrepreneur, owns multiple restaurants, farm to table, built this beautiful farm. I mean, like a little paradise in just north of LA, which services those restaurants. I mean, incredible thing, but at this point, she just can't make it work. The business doesn't work anymore. I think she had her best quarter prior to the pandemic ever. I think she took over more than $1 million herself, never mind paying everybody well and all of that. And now she has to leave. She's heading out to Texas. Now, one of the things that she said during this was that it's like a perfect storm was what I said, but one of the elements of this perfect storm is it seems like the people that are working are not, even for the same amount of time that's allocated, they're not working as well since the pandemic. Is this something that resonates with you? Have you heard about this?
Anecdotally, yeah. In my own organization, I haven't noticed it, but my own organization is very unique, and everybody is sort of we subscribe to a thing called ROWE, actually, ROWE, which is a results-oriented work environment.
I'm just going to comment because I was saying that I feel like your ethos and your organization is very, very similar to the Epoch Times, and we do ROWE. We never called it that, but
yeah. Well,
yeah.
It's difficult because I don't believe. I'm very suspicious of cookie cutter advice. I'm very suspicious of painting with too broad a brush, regardless of what the topic is. And I know we're going to talk about a lot of different stuff, but you're alluding to working from home. You're alluding to a kind of work ethic or a certain set of expectations that might dictate an employee's behavior or an employer's behavior. And your experience may vary. I think there are a lot of different ways to work, and there's a lot of different ways to think about work. There's unions, there's right to work, there's work from home, there's flex time, there's the gig economy, which tragically is under assault here in California and in other places. I don't know how much you've read about, I think it's AB 15 or AB 5, Assembly Bill 5. There's real interests that don't want people to freelance. They don't want people to drive the Uber that brought me to you here today, unless they can become employees, right? So these are big, complicated conversations that are happening all over the place. And I don't know how it impacted the person you're interviewing, but I do believe that we're in a time right now where an employer's expectations and an employee's expectations, and I'm speaking broadly, are wildly out of whack. And so there's a real disconnect going on. I've never, ever seen recruitment be this challenging for so many. And it's not just the skilled trades, it's in the restaurants. Everybody watching this has been to a restaurant in the last year and a half and seen the sign on the door. Not the sign that says help wanted, that's there, but the sign that says we're sorry because you're going to have to wait longer than we want you to wait because we can't hire enough people to be fully staffed. And the ones we do have, they came in on their day off to pick up the slack. So thanks for your patience, right? I've seen that or a version of it everywhere. And I've read books like Nick Eberstadt wrote a book called Men Without Work. And you would love this conversation. He wrote it in 2015 because he was very concerned with what was happening in the male population regarding employment. And he had a lot of theories on it, and the data went crazy during the lockdowns. And so he republished it. And among other things, right now we have 7.2 million men, able-bodied men in the prime of their working life, who are not only not working, but affirmatively not looking. What they're looking at are screens. They're home 2,000 hours a year looking at screens. That's new. Certainly in peacetime, we've never seen anything like that before. So your friend is not alone. Something is afoot. Something is amiss in the wide world of work. And as people grapple to define or maybe redefine what a good job is, a lot of businesses are just grasping at straws and clutching their pearls and very uncertain about what's going to happen next vis-a-vis the workforce.
So I don't want to rag on the service industry too much, but I just, a phenomenon that I've noticed. There seems to be less of an enthusiasm around providing service. Does that make sense? Again, anecdotal. This is something just I personally observed.
It doesn't make sense that there would be a lack of enthusiasm, but I agree with you. There is a lack of enthusiasm. And I can hypothesize, I think you'd probably need a social anthropologist to really dig in to try and explain, all of the effects, not just of the lockdowns, but of so many other things. I don't even know what generation we're in now. What is it? Alpha is coming, Z is here, millennials, X, boomer, they're all treated as if they're like a different species. Mm-hmm. And maybe they are, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. A lot of people my age are scratching their heads trying to figure out how to motivate, how to inspire, how to encourage, And again, I don't want to paint with a broad brush because I think people are still unique and individual and different. But yes, there is a sense, I think, that, here I am, I'm alive, I'm walking around, I went to school, I got my paper, and now that dream job we were talking about, where is it? I've been waiting now for 6 months, okay, and I don't really want to do this other stuff. We've lost our patience with the lower rungs on the ladder, which, a ladder without lower rungs is not a thing you can climb, So I don't know what it is, Jan. I mean, maybe it's social media, maybe it's the rise of the influencer, maybe we're just surrounded by so many examples of instant gratification that we've forgotten about the virtue of delaying such things. I don't know. In my own organization, in my own foundation, we talk a lot about this. Our scholarship program is called a work ethic scholarship program. Mm-hmm. What is work ethic? Well, it's a mix of things like the enthusiasm you just mentioned, so conspicuously absent. It's delayed gratification. It's a positive attitude. Mm-hmm. It's all of that stuff that a lot of kids today, I know I'm generalizing, but a lot of kids today look at with suspicion. They're suspicious of that when they're told they have to pay their dues, if they're told they have to start at the bottom. That rankles. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because it sounds like a lecture. Maybe it's because somebody like me is shaking their finger. Maybe it sounds like a sermon. Lectures and sermons aren't persuasive. That much I know for sure. So if you want to talk about a lack of enthusiasm in the younger generation, then I think I don't think you and I are in a position to do it, to be frank.
I'm just you're reminding me of back in 2020 or 2021, I remember the Smithsonian had this famous or infamous graphic that they put up. It was in their, it was physically present, but then it was also on their social media where they, described whiteness, which of course was as a pejorative, right? And both of us, I think, qualify here. But the things that were listed under as these white traits, like things that we should be suspicious of, included things like hard work, things related to good work ethic. Being on time was one of them. I remember that.
Right. Soft skills. Right. I mean, if you tell somebody that, you ought to tuck your shirt in, well, somehow that became an insult. If you tell somebody maybe you shouldn't look at your cell phone during the interview, well, why? Why? What do you mean? You're infringing on my rights. I've got a lot going on, and I can multitask. They might not see multitasking as a sign of rudeness. Right. It's the prior disconnect.
But my point is just that someone is actually teaching that these things are bad, and you shouldn't do them because you'll be white or white adjacent, as they call it, or whatnot, which is frankly terrible.
Well, look, I think it's worse than terrible. I think it's stupid. I think it's self-defeating. I think ultimately what you're doing when you tell somebody that is that you risk persuading them that you're correct. And if they believe that you're correct in that assessment, then you've just handed them a victim card. And those things are fun to collect, you know, and we shouldn't be turning the language upside down. That's what I think is happening. It's not just the Smithsonian putting out this thing. Every major company in the country has been pulled in to the environmental social governance, the DEI, you know, all of these things. And I'll give them every benefit of the doubt and assume it's all as well intended as it could be. But it's also just another couple of entrants into the army of angry acronyms, right? It's just two more things to worry about and one more way to virtue signal in a lot of ways. Look what we've done. Look at our commitment to this, and this. And the language gets pulled into that too. And so if you really want to be inclusive, then you have to be open to the idea that affirming a positive work ethic is some sort of artifact from the patriarchy or something. I don't know. But companies that I would have never expected to see this kind of thing coming from, they're all doing it in some way, shape, or form. I have a buddy who works for a big recruiter, like the biggest one. And he was telling me the other day that when he gets, I mean, he's way up the food chain. He's placing people in multi-million-dollar positions that are open. And the qualifications for those positions all now begin with gender, race, age, ethnicity, sexual preference. They're looking to check boxes affirmatively. Now, down here, yes, we're still going to look at education, we're going to look at experience, but chronology matters, you know. So a lot of things are happening in the language that are informing the way companies hire, which is going to alter the way they advertise for opportunities, and it's going to impact everything and everyone.
Well, and it's interesting, you know, you were talking earlier about cookie cutter, right? And this woke ideology very much works that way. It assumes that everyone in a particular group is the same. I want to switch gears for a moment. So again, I just remembered you did something that I was kind of surprised at first, but then as I kind of dug into it a little bit, it made a ton of sense to me. Which was you've come out as a big supporter of Walmart. So tell me about Walmart and why I should be supporting Walmart.
Well, I don't much care if you support them or not. I don't work for them. I was approached by them 8 years ago because actually I reached out to them. I had read an article that said they were going to commit to spend $250 billion over the next 10 years on U.S. supply chain and U.S. manufacturers. The small guys, people who are trying to make something in this country. Walmart was going to invest in the factories and the infrastructure that those endeavors need. And I thought that was great. And so I knew somebody who knew somebody over there, and I just said, for what it's worth, the dirty jobs guy is pulling for you, you know? Because really, if we have any hope of reshoring and truly reinvigorating manufacturing in this country, how are we going to do it without the biggest retailer in the world firmly behind it, right? There's all sorts of stuff about Walmart that I might, you know, quibble with, and obviously it's the third rail of retail for a lot of reasons. So anyhow, I did the voiceover in a commercial called, I think it was just called The Factory, and it aired during the Olympics. And it was an inspiring commercial about a factory that had been closed for years, and the lights were coming on, and the people were coming back to work. It was really kind of beautiful. It won some awards as well. Anyhow, the commercial airs, and I go over to Facebook and just start looking at comments, and there are a lot of them. Most of them were good, but a couple people were like, hey, What's up, dirty jobs guy? Don't you know that's an anti-union shop? Don't you know that big giant business is killing small business? And I said, oh, okay. I mean, I wasn't even in the commercial. I just narrated it, you know?
Yeah, but your voice is pretty distinctive.
Well, whatever, you know, I was just minding my own business. It was late at night. I'd had some wine. The Olympics were on. I was going to bed, but I sat down at my computer and I responded to a couple of the people who were most upset with me. And I said to them what I just said to you. I said, look, it's not about how you feel about Walmart. How do you feel about the country? How do you feel about a big retailer setting the bar in a place? Maybe Costco will follow suit, or Best Buy, or Home Depot, or Lowe's, or somebody you don't hate, right? Don't you want all of them to invest in the infrastructure that would allow more entrepreneurship and more made in the USA stuff to happen? So I kind of put that out there. And then I went to bed. And the next morning I got up and I looked at this post, and it's like 7 million people are having this giant, it's like a knife fight in a phone booth, man. They're so angry at me because organized labor had, you know, one dog in the hunt. They were very upset with Walmart because Walmart's not a union shop. And they saw me as a guy who should be on that side of that argument. Now I run a foundation, and we don't get political, and I don't get involved in labor and management disputes. And I don't think I did here. All I said was, it's Walmart. It's $250 billion. I'm pulling for them. You're not? Right? And so, long story short, it got weirder and louder, faster and faster. And that night on CNN, there's my picture. I think it was on Aaron Burnett's show, and under it is the caption that says, "Working man hero, ? Walmart shill," right? All this stuff is like, whoa. So I just got on a plane and went to New York and booked myself on all these shows without Walmart's permission, by the way. Walmart's freaking out because holy cow, there's some guy, the dirty jobs guy, is on Hannity and Tucker and CNN and all these different shows defending them. Well, I was really defending myself because these issues are important to me. And whatever you think about Walmart versus the little guy or union versus non-union, I still believe that we don't have any hope of turning the ship around without big blue chip companies betting on this country. By the way, I was in Bentonville again just a couple of weeks ago because Walmart's doing this thing called Open Call, where they invite hundreds of small U.S. manufacturers, it's exclusively U.S., to come and pitch them. And many of them, I mean hundreds of them, get deals. They get their product on the shelf. They've spent all of the $250 billion they promised to spend earlier than they promised to spend it, and have pledged another $350 billion. So, you know, everybody talks about this issue, Jan. Everybody is like, we got to bring manufacturing back. We got to get China under control. We got to do this. We got to do that. Mm-hmm. Well, this is a step in that direction.
So you're sure you're not getting paid by Walmart here?
If I am, I don't know it.
I'm just teasing because you're convincing me here. Okay.
Look, I mean, but honestly, that's what I mean by cookie cutter advice. I'm not out in the world going, hey, I need to make everybody think different about Walmart. I get it. The people at the top of that food chain are very wealthy, but you know what? They employ tens of thousands of people, like over 100,000 people. And there's just no way you can sum up the totality of their existence in a binary conversation.
You know, and I can't help but think about we were talking about work ethic earlier, and so one of the things I want to talk about, you're actually offering scholarships that feature, is it called the Work Ethic Scholarship Program?
It is.
I mean, yeah. So tell me about this. What are you doing?
So, Dirty Jobs has been on the air every day for the last 20 years. It's the reason I'm sitting here with you now. whether you know it directly or not. That's the thing that gave me permission to mouth off and weigh in on a lot of different things. Back in 2008, it was everywhere. It was #1 show on cable, and the country went into a recession. And everywhere I looked, I saw headlines talking about massive numbers of unemployed people. But everywhere we went on Dirty Jobs, we saw help wanted signs. Seemed odd, right? How can so many people be out of work as the country's going into a recession, and yet so many opportunities?
And I'll just comment, because that's mirrored in our current situation in a lot of ways, right? As you alluded to earlier. Yeah.
Mirrored and amplified,
Right.
unfortunately. In 2008, there were 2.3 million open jobs, most of which didn't require a four-year degree. There was $900 million in student debt. And that's what the skills gap looked like. Today, it's close to 11 million open positions, most of which don't require a four-year degree. It's $1.7 trillion in outstanding student loans. So we're still doing the thing we were doing then today. We're still stubbornly arguing for a four-year degree for everyone. We're still warning parents that if your kid doesn't go in this direction, they're going to wind up turning a wrench with some sort of vocational consolation prize. And look, I get it. There's always going to be social stigmas and whatnot, but this is different. These stigmas and stereotypes and myths and misperceptions that are keeping kids out of the trades, they're not rooted in social climbing. Some of it might be, the varsity blues stuff was another story. These are just straight up misconceptions that people don't understand. You can make six figures welding with no college debt within a couple of years of getting your certification. I know it because we've trained about 1,700 of those people. So anyway, sorry, I'm bouncing around. In 2008, I started a foundation to shine a light on those 2.3 million open positions that didn't require a four-year degree, but required a skilled trade. And that's what started MicroWorks. It was just a PR campaign for opportunity. Mm-hmm. And then the fans of Dirty Jobs, they helped me build a trade resource center online. So now I've got this big resource center with thousands of job openings all over the place. Good jobs: electricians, steam fitters, pipe fitters, mechanics, heating, air conditioning, and so forth, right? And so that freaked people out, because remember, all we're hearing about is opportunities dead. Because the average person, when they see 11 million unemployed people, they figure, well, what we have to do to fix that is just create more jobs. Well, we had the jobs. We didn't have the skills. And then it turns out we also didn't have the will. The skill gap gets a lot of press. The will gap is also there. So it just brought me back to the PR challenge. A big reason we have so much opportunity open today is because the companies in charge of those opportunities, to be candid, have done a poor job of promoting them. And, there was a time when we did need more kids going through the Ivy League or higher education. We needed more engineers, we needed more doctors, scientists and so forth in the 60s and 70s. And so college got a big PR campaign. It was a pretty good one. But like all PR, the push for college went too far. We weren't content to simply make the case for higher ed. We had to do it at the expense of all other forms of education. We had to turn all those dirty jobbers that I had worked with for all those years, we had to turn them into cautionary tales. If you don't get the four-year degree,
you'll end up like this.
Exactly. But not even understanding what like this meant. Because the big lesson from Dirty Jobs was these people are happy, they're living balanced lives. Not everybody's a millionaire, obviously. Some people, they work their 40 hours a week, they come home, they coach Little League, they go to the PTA, they go to their church, they live a life that looks a lot like prosperity because they mastered a skill that was in demand. Not because they went to college, maybe they did, but most of them didn't, right? So the answer to your question is we award work ethic scholarships today because that PR campaign called Micro Works, it worked. It worked to the point where it moved the needle enough so that a lot of big companies noticed. And they came to me and they said, how can you help us make a more persuasive case for the opportunities in our company? And I said, well, I'm not an expert, but I'll tell you what I've learned and I'll tell you what I think I know. And it started to work. So people started to give me money, a fair amount of money, really. I mean, I've never hosted a fundraiser or done a chicken dinner or a celebrity golf dinner. I don't do that. I let people know what we're doing, and I'll take their money. If you want to contribute, microworks.org, I appreciate it. But what I do with it is I award it in the form of a work ethic scholarship. Why? Because there's a scholarship for everything else. We have academic scholarships.
Yeah.
We have athletic scholarships. We have artistic scholarships. We've got all that. Where's the money for the young man or woman who says, you're right, I'm not going to follow my passion. I'm going to take it with me. I'm going to get up every morning. I'm going to show up early. I'm going to stay late. I'm going to cheerfully lift with enthusiasm. I'm going to make myself indispensable. I'm going to volunteer for every crappy task at hand. I'm going to make my boss love me. You show me that person, I'll train them. And so that caught on. And we started doing that, I guess, in 2000. Started the foundation in Labor Day 2008. Started this in 2012. So today we've given away close to $8 million and assisted nearly 2,000 people in learning a skill that's in demand. Time and time again, after talking with septic tank workers and bridge builders and skull cleaners and just this endless variety